Y'all are going to have fun with this. I'm Ben, I'm alcoholic. Oh my gosh. You ever get the feeling that everybody's staring at you? uh, uh, when John asked me, I was thinking, anybody else? I mean, you sure? You know? But John is a real good friend of mine. There's a lot of good people that I see in this crowd. A lot of people that I absolutely love. A lot of people that have helped me. A lot of people that I get to see how much they love AA. We all do something. This is all the delegates, alternate delegates, and past delegates. We all stand up. Thank you for your service. Thank you. Thank you, because to do stuff, I mean, whenever you're a delegate, man, you have to take off away from your job, your family, a lot for a 2-year period. And really, even more than that. And if you're the alternate and then you do the whole process. And thank you for being our voice up there. So I am a 3 Legacy guy. We just started a new meeting in my area that is a 3 Legacy group. And I'm so proud to have a home group that's a 3 Legacy group. I love to be asked to speak. I don't like to speak. I like to talk, don't get me wrong. I mean, but I have speech impairment. And it seems like I always feel like I stutter a lot. I feel like I go into one story and then I think about another one and I just don't finish that one, you know. My wife says that she professionally claims that I got ADHD or ADD. I don't know which one it was because I wasn't paying attention. But so I don't know. She'll probably tell me after. But really, the main reason is because there's so many great speakers in AA. There's so many people that are great communicators. There's so many people. And I just don't feel like whenever I communicate what has happened in my life in AA, I don't feel like I do it justice. I don't feel like, because I just can't get the words out that describes the transformation that's happening here for somebody like me. So whenever I get asked to speak, you know, I like the approval of it, but I don't really, this right here, I really don't like doing. There was a girl named Beth, and she was in a rehab that I was in, and she told me about it. Recovery meetings, and it got me to go to my first meeting. Dale Smith, he was in one of the first meetings I went to, and he identified with me, and he there was this identification. He welcomed me in, and he talked my language, right? And I felt like, oh, I might belong here, you know? And then there was a guy named Sammy. And Sammy came and got me because I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have a car. It didn't mean I didn't drive, but he would come and get me, and we get asphalt recovery. Y'all know what that is? If you don't get none, it's your own asphalt. Yeah. But and we just went everywhere, going to meetings. And we'd talk. I mean, and we just both. He was newer than I was newer than him, but man, we was just doing it, man. There was a guy, Bill Kay, and he was a pilot. And I got my first job in recovery, and whenever my first job being sober, and whenever I did, it was at Sea Ray Boats, and it was like 45 minutes away, and he lived 15 minutes away from me. And I was in the meeting, and I was like, I wouldn't ask him for anything. I told him I got this job, and I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I got a job, And then, and he came up to me and he says, "How you don't have no way or anything?" And he says, "I'll tell you what, I'll take you." And he got up at 5 o'clock and took me for 2 weeks, from 5 a.m. He took me an hour, and then came back and got me. As of what I know, none of them stayed sober. They were my Ebbies. We don't know when we don't just do a good deed. We don't know when it's going to be a life-changing deed for somebody else. And because of what they done, I'm here today. I don't know what would have happened, but because of that, when I first came into the meetings, I was a maniac. Y'all had these. I didn't know y'all had rules. I didn't know that you couldn't share more than once. I didn't know that you couldn't talk about drugs. I didn't know that you couldn't share at some. I didn't know the ethics of AA. I didn't know it. I did it. And they'd shut me down, and then I'd go again. It was probably hilarious for some, but it sucked for others. And I went and I wasn't like this prize sponsee. So and everybody, you got a sponsor, and so I went and asked people to sponsor me, and nobody would sponsor me. And then I was like, why won't nobody sponsor me? Everybody else has got a sponsor. Nobody has sponsored me. And I asked like 2 or 3 guys, and they wouldn't sponsor me. And then I was like, I didn't know what to do, And I was like, there was this guy named Tony M. And Tony, I went to him and I said, Tony, man, I said, nobody will sponsor me. Will you sponsor me? And he goes, I've been waiting on you. Tony saved my life. I love AA. I love it. I didn't know the life that it was coming, but man, I know the life that I had sucked. It was so horrible. Not just for me, it was for everybody it sucked. So I'm from Athens, Tennessee. Well, let me say this. My sobriety date's October 1st, 2006. I just celebrated my 19th year. Yeah. And my mom, I love family recovery. My mom was in Al-Anon. And she wasn't good, but she was, I look back and I'm like, man, she relapsed a lot. And at the time, I'm glad she did, But anyway, my mom and dad, my mom was Al-Anon, and there was a lot of dysfunction in my family. I know y'all's is dysfunctional. Mine wins, I'm telling you. I'm just kidding, kind of. Okay, so what happened was my mom mom, my grandmother, she ended up getting hooked on nerve pills and ended up killing herself, and my mom found her. And then so on my mom's side, I already have a traumatic thing. I mean, I don't have a grandmother, and then my mom found her, and it was traumatic for my mom, and my mom had, issues because of that. Well, then on my dad's side, my grandfather was a bootlegger. He was a bootlegger, and then he was a real bad drunk, and he was very violent. And one time he went on a drunk, and he killed my grandmother, and he went to prison. And so on one side, I have my grandmother that got killed, and then on the other side, I had one that killed herself. And then, and so my mom, so I got this hell-on mom and this alcoholic drug addict dad, and they decide to get together. And then this is the evidence of it. It was so right off bat, I mean, I have all kinds of traumatic stuff. That does not make me an alcoholic, but I'm going to tell you, it does mess with my abandonment issues. It does mess with me being rejected. It messes with traumatic stuff that comes from that. You know what I'm saying? It does. I have a lot of insecurities. I have a lot of trauma in myself, because when you have that stuff, it ripples down to the kids. Well, so I ended up 12 years old. When your grandfather is a bootlegger, you can go to other bootleggers. And I was real young looking, and I'd go and I went to the bootlegger, and I'd go and I'd say, yeah, can I get a pint of Jim? And he'd be like, who are you? And they don't ID you at the bootlegger, but I did look young, and I was like, I said, well, I'm Clyde Robinson's grandson. Oh, how's Clyde? I said, he's doing good. He's down there at Clay Hill, whatnot. And he'd here. And then I want y'all to know I got my first line of credit at a bootlegger. Yeah, got my first line of bad credit at a bootlegger. But anyway, whenever you do that, whenever you're the one that can get alcohol like that, it makes you a little bit popular. It makes you, it don't mean they like me. It just means that I could get them something, And then, I loved attention. I started loving the attention. I loved the approval and whatnot. And that was probably my first addiction, was attention. I wanted attention because I felt so here and so lost here that if I got your attention, if you laughed at me, that meant you liked me. I mean, I was accepted. That meant, I needed that approval because I felt so lost as a kid. And so I got in a lot of trouble in school. And then whenever you start drinking and liking attention, you start going to jail. Started going to jail, started getting underage drinking charges. I am a recovering criminal also. I'd see some of my fellow peers. I've been arrested from anything from underage drinking to PIs to DUIs. If it's got an I in it, I've been arrested for it. From evading arrest to breaking in cars, breaking in houses, breaking in businesses, false imprisonment. Anybody knows what false imprisonment is? If you lock your girlfriend in the closet, they will arrest you for it. I ain't saying I did that. I'm just trying to give you an example of it. I was acquitted. No. Got arrested for theft over $50,000 on Christmas night. I stole a transfer truck. I was drunk on Jack Daniels and Xanaxes and thought I could drive a transfer truck. I'm telling you, it's a lot harder than you think. And I would tell you exactly what happened, but I don't remember. And then got arrested for a meth lab. I know it's AA. Don't kick me out. I didn't mean to do it. I wouldn't have done it if I knew I was coming to AA, I promise. But I want y'all, this is not a funny story, but it is a funny story. So I want y'all to know the speaker that you got here. So I got arrested for this, and I was going to court for it, and I went and I hired the most brilliant lawyer in the world. I represented myself in a meth lab trial in the state of Tennessee. And whenever I went to the meetings, I would tell the people in the meetings, I was like, I'm going to court for this, and whatnot. And they said, who's your lawyer? Me. They was like, oh no, don't do that. I was like, man, I'm Perry Mason. Come on. Yeah. So, anyway, man, I've tried every way to drink and drug. I've tried. Let me only drink beer. Don't let me drink no vodka. Vodka makes me want to fight. Can't drink vodka. Okay, let me do wine coolers. Let me do wine. Let me only drink on the weekends. Let me only drink after work. Let me only drink with these people. Let me only drink at this location. Let me only drink. I won't drink. I'll do volumes. It don't work, does it, Mike? I'm telling you. I'm gonna try to do all these ways to do it, and I'm telling you, I couldn't do it. I thought of every way, every substitution, any kind of chemical balance that I could try to do it, and I could not do it. And then I don't know about you, but whenever you get to a place to where, you're trying all these ways, there's a lot of consequences in coming with all these ways. And then what I would do is I'd get to a place where I'm like, dang, man, I'm going to have to stop this crap. And then I would be like, okay, how am I going to stop? Well, I got prayed on. I went to Christian counseling, where it was me and the preacher I went there. I done psychotherapy. I got put on medication. I tried to get a good woman. I'll try to get a couple good women, I'll try to change places. I'll change families. I'll try anything, right? I tried every way that I could try to not be able to do it. And I always came up with a great idea to do it again. I always did. And that's the insanity of it, because see, the thing is after a period of time, I'm not doing, whenever I'm doing it, I'm not doing it and not knowing the consequences. I know most likely if I do this, I'm probably going to lose my job. They told me I was going to. I knew that if I did this, I'm probably going to go to jail. But why? Because the probation officer told me I was going to. I knew that if I drank again, I was going to lose Brady. And everything in me was like, I'm not going to drink. not for the family. I can't be a dad like my dad. And I drank anyway. People say, don't drink no matter what. I drink no matter what. I've tried pledging. I've swore to God on my kid's life and drank. I don't got no choices. I don't know how to do it. I come into AA. I come into AA because I've tried so many other ways, and then somebody came up with this, and I went in, right? I tried it. And I want to tell you, I loved AA. I loved it. Hey, you could come in and what somebody already shared, you can come in here and you can say the sickest stuff, and you can do it a lot, and they'll just say, keep coming back. I'm like, that's awesome. And then they would come up to me after the meeting and they would be like, we wasn't laughing at you, we was laughing with you. And I'll be like, I wasn't laughing. And it was just, I came in and I got on fire. I got on fire for AA. I would go to a lot of meetings. I wanted to be in service. I wanted to be a part of this thing, and I did it, man. I loved AA. And whenever I did, I ended up being the alternate GSR. I ended up being the GSR. I ended up doing district, the corrections chair. I ended up doing institutions chair. I was like, put me in. I'll do whatever. I loved it. And I'm going to tell you, I was doing H&I. I was doing all this stuff, and it works. And I went through the steps, and then one day I remember somebody asked me to sponsor him, and I was like, me? And then I said, let me ask my sponsor. This ain't ever happened, And then I went to my sponsor, and then he goes, I said, should I sponsor? And he said, yeah, I'll sponsor him. He said, it ain't your fault he wants what you have. Yeah. I don't know if that was a compliment or not. John just confirmed it wasn't. But so I was doing the deal, man. I was doing all this stuff, and then I don't know about you, but you can do that, and it will give you relief. And it will give you more freedom than you've ever had. But something happened with me. And what happened with me was, I know that y'all tell all your secrets when y'all do y'all's fifth step. But I didn't. And I'm going to tell you, you can come in here and you can stay sober and not tell all your secrets. It ain't me. You can come in here and stay sober for a period of time. You can sponsor people. You can do all this stuff. And you can get some relief. Until you can't. And and I don't know when it is for you, but I know when it was for me. It was around 8 years. It was probably before 8 years, but at 8 years is whenever I hit bottom again. You know, and whenever I hit, and what happened was, I was substituting, not drugs or anything. It was other compulsive stuff in here. You can live dirty. You can share like Shakespeare and live like a reindeer in here. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, and what happened is I got so unhappy. Sponsoring, going to the treatment center wasn't doing it no more. Sponsoring more people, it wasn't working. Doing every activity that I could think of in AA didn't work. Only thing that started to work is thinking about work was suicide. And there wasn't nothing really wrong, but something just wasn't right. And I didn't know what it was because I thought I was doing it. And then, and I got really I got real down. And I was in my car. I was in my car and I was crying. And I was listening to a speaker tape. And on the speaker tape, it was a guy, and he had talked about how he burned his life down at 10 years sober. He had done all this stuff, and he had burned it, you know, and I was listening, and I was crying, and then the next thing you know, on it, he says that he always answers the phone, and he always says yes. And he put his phone number in the tape. And I was like, well, we're about to find out if he answers. I was like, we're about to find out, you know, because I mean, I was at a place, and then, you know, and my stuff was, I was really not living good. It was really, really dark, bad stuff that I was doing. And I remember I called Bill. And he answered. It's Bill, you know, and then and he answered, and I said, hey, I'm this person, and I'm from Tennessee, and then whatnot, and then I said, and I heard, I'm listening to your tape, and it says at 10 years you burnt your life to the ground and all this, and he was like, yeah, and you know, and then I just went straight into a fist step. I went straight into this fit. Oh, I've been doing this. I've been doing that. You know, and next thing you know, he goes, Ben, he says, man, I really appreciate you, and it's an honor that you told me this stuff. He said, I just want you to know that I'm in my car and you're on speaker, and my wife's in the car. I was like, of course she is. And then he goes, well, she's in recovery, and she's heard worse than this. And you know, and at that time, I didn't care. I didn't care. When you're beat down, when you're in that place, you don't care who hears. You don't care. You just don't want to live the way that you're living. You don't want to feel the way that you feel. You don't want to be the person that you are. And you're like, I'll tell every damn body if it means that I don't have to feel like this. If I don't have to feel like this, I'll tell you. And then I remember he says, okay, you're going to have to do a 4-step. You need to get with, and he asked me about sponsorship and stuff. And then he goes to, he says, how far are you away from Nashville? And I said, about 4 hours. He says, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you this guy's number, and he says, I want you to call him. And it was Steve Lee. And Steve's been my sponsor ever since. And I called Steve. And when I called Steve, I called him and I said, is your wife in the car? And then I went straight into a fist stab. I don't even know if he said yes or not. But and then what happened was I told him, and then he says, we need to do you need to do an inventory. And then I got him over there, and then I ended up writing it out, and I went and I met with him. And I didn't know that I'd left something out. I did, but I didn't know that it was affecting me the way it affected me. And I told him. I told him my secret. And I'll tell y'all my secret. My daughter was born, and when my daughter was born, my daughter ended up having a virus. And whenever she was in the hospital, they couldn't figure out what the virus was. And whenever they couldn't figure it out, and I was working out of town, and she was in the ICU room in Knoxville, Tennessee, the children's ICU room, and I left work and I went down there, and I was in the ICU room, and I was detoxing in the ICU room. Now, I did it because I thought that's what a good daddy did. I wasn't a good daddy, but that's what I thought one did. And then they come in, and they can't figure out what it is that's wrong with my daughter, and then they come in and they told me that my daughter had just passed. My little girl just died, and I could not care. I had no feelings. My soul was so dark and empty. I just played the role. And I left there, and I went down to the emergency room and told them I was having a nervous breakdown, and they gave me some medication. And I left there, and I went to a buddy that had dry goods, and I went, and he goes, Ben, he says, I just heard about your daughter, man. He said, that's super sad. He says, if there's ever anything that I can do, just let me know. I said, all right, bro, hook me up. I'll use my daughter to try to get more. And then I went to the funeral home, and drunk on Jack Daniels, and I tried to fight everybody. And the cops were called. And I couldn't stay at the funeral, and I couldn't go to the cemetery. And I didn't care. My mom couldn't grieve her granddaughter. Angela couldn't grieve her daughter. The family couldn't grieve, and I did not care. I want you to know there was something in me that knew that there was something really broken in me. I knew, and I went on a run of all runs. I was going out and robbing people. I was going out and doing everything that I could to try to get you to kill me. I just hurt so many people. I was just lost. Well, I hadn't told you my secret yet. When my daughter was in there, they couldn't figure it out what was wrong with my daughter. And they came and they was like, we can't figure it out. And they asked us a question. They said, is there any way that do you, either one of y'all have a STD? And Angela said, no, I don't have one. They asked me, and I said, no, I don't have one. And I did. And I do. And my daughter's life was on the line, and I said, no. I was just so scared. I was afraid everybody's going to blame me. I was afraid that I was never going to have sex again. I was afraid that that if anybody knew that I was more worried about my daughter, my sex life, than my daughter's life. I was more worried about my image than my daughter's life. I was more worried about not taking responsibility than my daughter's life. Of course I was. You don't deal with this. You don't face this. Of course you want to do suicide. And I kept on having sex with women and not telling them I had STDs. And I did it in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Of course I was sick again. And I didn't know, and I thought that relief was freedom. I thought relief was freedom and didn't know that I didn't know. And Steve's guided me through. So I want y'all to know, because someone was willing to answer the damn phone and guide me to somebody that knows how to deal with somebody like me. And he was willing to sponsor and guide me. I was able to get free of this secret. See, my sponsor says it ain't, he says there's this thing that says you're as sick as your secret. He says, another one, he says you are as sick as you are secret. He says it ain't the secrets that kill you, it's you being secret about them. And I want you to know I am not hostage from this secret no more. It don't rule me no more. I'm not afraid of it no more. Do I care what y'all think of me? Absolutely. But it don't rule me, and I know that if I don't talk about it, somebody else has went through stuff like this. And if I don't talk about it, maybe it won't help them. So, I don't know what time it is. Okay, it's 2. What time we start? Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. So, so I went through a divorce. I went through a divorce, and whenever I went through this divorce, I was 15 years sober, 14 years sober, and I cheated on my wife. Amazing woman. I got sick again in AA, and I cheated on my wife. And she did the right thing and she divorced me. Well, she's in recovery also, and I was like, you know what? We're going to go through the divorce. We're going to go through this divorce, and we're going to do it with integrity. We're going to show them in the recovery. You can go through a divorce with integrity. And it was going good. And then, you know, I mean, she got one dog. I got the other dog. She got the house, money. I got the dog. Okay. And you know, and then I was living in this little office, and you know, and I'm going through a divorce, so I'm going through a hard time. The dog, not did I just love my dog? The dog was very comforting. It was, you know, and I love my dog, right? So what happened was she ended up changing her mind, and she went to the border because I'd take the dog sitting. And so she goes to the dog sitter and takes my dog. And I'm like, now I gave you everything else. I mean, I'm not giving you the dog. And so I came up with a plan. And I want you to know this was not talked about to Steve. I knew that he had bad ideas with this. You know, so what happened was I knew that she left at a certain time to go to a meeting, and she walked the dogs before she did. She would go and let them out, and I was like, well, I'll just come at that time. And then when she went around the house and then coming back, I ran up and I grabbed the dog. And then it was on a leash, and I took it off. She was hitting me in the head, and I just left. And I left. She called the law. The law called me. They said, "Will you come do a statement?" I said, "No, I've already talked to my lawyer." He said, "No, not to do it," so I didn't. And my lawyer said, "Okay." This was on a Sunday. He says, on Monday, what we'll do is I'll talk to her lawyer, and we'll get this settled. And I was like, okay. So Monday, he told me it was settled. Well, that next week, Saturday, we was having a picnic at the state park, AA event, and I was the coordinator of it. And I got this lady out from out of town to come speak, and she's up there speaking like this right here. And next thing you know, there's 8 cops in tactical gear surrounded the picnic, and there's like 150 people. And I'm up in the front, right? And I look back there, and I'm like, dang, somebody's about to have a bad day. And then you know, and then there's a guy back there, and he's talking to him, and whenever he talks to him, they start waving at me, and I was like, I'm the coordinator. Okay, I'll go back there, and they go, "Are you Dwayne Robinson?" I said, "Oh shit, I'm the one having a bad day." I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "You want to do this here or down there?" And I said, "Yes, go down there." And then, so on the way down there, I said, "Are y'all all here for me?" And they said, "Well, we have reason to believe you might have a gun." And I was like, I don't got no opinion on guns or anything like that. I didn't have one, you know. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've hurt her so bad that she was willing to do this. And it made me, and you know, one thing I was thinking, it was vengeful, vindictive, all this stuff. But at the very bottom, the hill, I was like, you know, touche. I was like, I ain't gonna be able to outdo this. I was like, this is a good one now, you know. But anyway, so I'm going through this divorce. And whenever I'm going through this divorce, man, I am in a deep depression. I'm going in a real horrible spot. I'm really in a bad spot. Okay, I was raised in a little town, and I was raised, and I was racist. There was a lot of racism in my family, a lot of homophobic in my family, and there was a lot of sexism. Woman, I mean, there was a lot. If you in my town, in my family, if you got disability, it was like cha-ching. That's the way my family was raised in this little old town, right? And that wasn't my belief system, but I took and borrowed their belief system because it's the only belief system I knew. And I owned, so then I come into recovery, and I'm coming in with it, but then y'all are starting to work on me. Y'all starting to work on me. Well, so then I get this girl. When I'm going through this, there's this girl named Mindy comes up to me, and she asked me to sponsor her. And she is a gay woman, and she asked me to sponsor her, and I've never sponsored a woman. And so I go to my sponsor, and he says, yeah, and so I do. I sponsor. And then whenever I start sponsor, I go from having an opinion and then having an experience, and I get to do a fist step with her. I get to talk to her. I get to find out more about her. And then next thing you know, it changes my opinion. I was a deadbeat dad. And my first daughter, my first daughter was born, and I ended up abandoning her. And whenever I abandoned her, I wasn't in her life, and then finally, in recovery, I was going to make amends, but she was in high school, and I was like, I ain't going to interrupt her life because I was going to have to go to court to even be able to see her. So what I done is she lives in Athens, Tennessee, and I live in Kingsport, Tennessee. It's 2.5 hours. So I'm like, she's 18, about to graduate. I asked to look her up on Facebook. I'm like, she's 18, I can talk to her now. I look her up, and I'm like, I wonder what college she's going. Well, she could go to UT, UTC, Middle Tennessee State. She could go to all these different ones. She comes up to East Tennessee. She comes to me. And we have this, and I message her, and I tell her, I say, hey, I know that you're here in East Tennessee and whatnot, and this is who I am, and all this. And I sent it to her, and I asked her if she would like to go to lunch. No, if she don't want to, I understand. She says yes. So I go, and we have lunch. It ain't a great thing. It is just lunch. Well, from then on, every holiday, every anniversary, every birthday, everything, I send her happy birthday, happy Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And I did that, and then she ends up moving to Nashville. And I did that, and she was 27 years old. And I going through this divorce, and I'm like, I'm going to message her. And I know that she's in Nashville, and I messaged her, and I said, I'm in Nashville a lot, and I see that you live there. And I said, the next time I come through, I'd love to take you out to eat. I said, no pressure. If you don't want to do it, I understand. I said, I'm just grateful that you let me be in your life on Facebook. And you're a wonderful person. I love what I see, And then next thing you know, she messages me, and she says, I would absolutely love to have. And then we started chatting. And she started asking me questions. And she told me that she's been going through a lot. And I asked her what, and she says, well, I just came out as gay, and my family disowned me. And she said, you know, and then what came to me was this. I came in her life exactly when I was supposed to. And Mindy, I thought I was going to help Mindy. And I didn't know that Mindy was preparing me to be in my daughter's life. I don't know the ripple effects. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know this stuff, right? I don't know. And you know, my prejudice will keep me from helping people. My ideas, my belief systems, I need, this is the thing. There's this trans guy that's in our rooms, and he after we went out to eat, and I was like, he left, and I asked the people, I said, who's sponsoring him? And they said, well, right, nobody is sponsoring. I said, nobody is sponsoring. I said, yeah, he's asked people, and nobody is sponsoring. I said, hey, what's his number? I text him, and I said, hey, who's your sponsor? And he says, I'm in between. I said, I won't put my name in the hat. He said, you sure? I said, how can I not be? My daughter is engaged to a trans man. He taught me the plurals. I didn't know them. I didn't know I didn't know how to communicate it. Huh? Pronouns. See? See? I didn't know. And think about this. Nobody would sponsor me. Nobody would sponsor me, a maniac like me, somebody that did the stuff that Tony sponsored me, knowing everything that I did. How can I not sponsor him? I have a belief system. If I don't change my belief system, only thing it does is it separates me from you. I need to find out what is blocking me from you and God. If I don't find out, man, what freedom? I absolutely love AA. Sorry. All right, the speakers so far, man, y'all have killed it. Y'all have touched my heart. Seeing Marion go through what she's went through, that's the real deal AA. And I love seeing people that do this. Thank you. If you in here and you say yes, thank you. Because you say yes, people like me get to live in freedom today. Thank you.